everyone, welcome to Flexibility Script. Today's video is going to be talking about the very important muscle known as psoas. The psoas is one of the main hip flexor muscles. I'm holding up an image here that I pulled up by Googling the psoas online so that you all could see the psoas. Right here, attaches at the lumbar spine, comes through the hip, and attaches right on the top of our thigh bone. And then we have iliacus here. Sometimes you hear the term iliopsoas, and usually referring to both of these muscles together. They play a big important part in hip issues, back issues, even knee issues. The fact that the muscle comes from the lumbar spine and comes through the front of the hip to attach on the thigh bone, if it wasn't for the psoas, we would be falling apart. Whenever there's issues in the psoas, especially back issues, the psoas can become tight. It can also become short, and they can sometimes go hand in hand. Being tight, meaning the fascia is a bit bound up, and short, meaning it's lacking range of motion. Today's video is going to cover a psoas release using a lacrosse ball. I'm going to cover two releases, kind of two options that are very easy to do at home and can help both improve range of motion of the psoas and release the tightness at the same time. Also, a difference in lower back pain often will be felt. A difference in hip range of motion can be felt if looking to really improve flexibility and splits. Is the big one to really release and open up. And if you're doing this release with the lacrosse ball and then you're following it with stretching, you'll get a big increase in flexibility with it. And you'll notice a difference right away too. Let's get started. So the very first release, I'm just going to set the camera down here. The very first release is going to be no equipment required. All you need is a ball and your body to use as a form of weight that you can be put onto the ball. So the psoas, I know I showed the picture, it comes from the lumbar spine, comes through the front of the hip. To release the psoas, you actually go through the abdomen. And if you were to find your belly button, which mine is right here, and then if I find the top of the hip, which mine is right here, there's belly button, there's top of the hip, the psoas, anywhere you put the lacrosse ball within the abdomen here will work really well. What I usually do for the best spot for everyone is if I find the belly button and top of the hip and that little diagonal, if I put that ball between the 2 points, I'll be more than likely to get all the tissue that I'm wanting to affect. And all I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be laying down on the ball. Now, just a heads up, this can be a bit uncomfortable, especially if having any issues with pain in this area, or issues with feeling really tight in the hip area in general. Best thing to do is just once you settle in on the ball is just to relax your head, find a comfortable position, and you start belly breathing into the ball. When you belly breathe, you'll feel your abdomen push into the ball, and then when you exhale, you'll feel that ball be able to sink in more. Once you do a couple of belly breaths, you can integrate some range of motion to it. So the range of motion would be you taking the leg, bending it, and lifting it up, back down, and then back to straightening it. And you'll keep bend, lifting. You can be here anywhere from 30 seconds up to 2 minutes. I sometimes count repetitions and go anywhere from 10 to 30 reps depending on how it's feeling. I can be here with my upper body, but it usually is better if I can find a position where I can be able to keep the most amount of pressure on that ball as I'm going in and out of this motion. This is one of the basic releases. It works great. Another release that you can do is just freestyling with the leg. So you can be taking the leg in and out and see if that creates any spiciness. You can also take the leg into a little bit of abduction and bringing the leg away from you and then bringing it back in, and see what works best for you. Technically, this motion here where you're really activating the glute to lift the leg up will do you wonders. Alright, the next one, all you would need for it is just a chair. I'm going to set this right here. So the chair and the floor, because you're going to be laying down on the floor on this release. So this release, the ball is going to pretty much generally be going right in the same area as I had shown you before on the floor. You're going to be taking your legs and you're going to be popping them up onto a chair or anything that you have accessible. It doesn't have to be a chair. You could be creative. Just fixing the camera here. All right, so from here, I do need something in addition to the chair and the floor, and that's something to be able to keep some weight down on the ball. The ball's going to go in that same area as it had before, and I can use my hands to put some pressure down and do this release, but it usually works best if I could find some sort of weight, whether it's a kettlebell or I'm going to be using a dumbbell today. I'm just going to be taking the dumbbell and placing it so that way that lacrosse ball can sink down into the tissue much more into that psoas. All I'm going to be doing here is I'm just creating some movement again by letting the leg go out, come back, and then straighten back up. So on this version here, it kind of does what we were doing on the floor backwards. So on this one, we're getting the hip in a flexed position by bringing the leg here, and we're going into abduction and also some leg extension too, kind of working all the movements that the psoas is involved in to help release the tissue here. So both options are great. You can also do both of them, spend a minute to two on one and a minute to two on this option here to release the psoas. Do both sides. You'll feel an increase in flexibility and a freedom of movement in the hip right after you're done with both releases. They work really great. Try them out. Check it out. Feel the freedom. Have fun.